Okay, here we go. Okay. Hey everybody! I'm here with Leo today, who I met at a USC event. He's a super talented singer, and he's woke. So,
stay woke, y'all.
Yes. The subject that we're going to talk about today is the complications of being Asian, and I guess the place that we have in race discussions, because I feel like it's really it's complicated.
Yes.
Because I feel like it's complicated because we are usually held up as the model minority, and there is a, I don't know if I would call it a privilege, but I would call it like a pseudo privilege almost, because we are allowed in like more like practical job spaces, and that lets us have like a higher average income as Asian Americans. But it also like keeps us out of certain spaces, you know, like in entertainment, because like we're still seen as like not sexy, submissive, and feminine. But at the same time, like I've been told a few times on Twitter that like Asian is basically white. I don't know if you've heard that before.
I went to an international school, and sometimes, you know, there's kind of this like divide between, you know, Asians that maybe went to like Chinese school for the first years of their elementary school and speak really good Chinese and identify more with like the Chinese community, and kind of the more Asian American ones. And then, you know, I'm kind of like straddling between, so I talk to both sides, and sometimes the more Chinese side is like, oh, they're like such bananas, you know, they're like basically white inside. And I think like with that word comes like a lot of the implication of like, oh, you're white inside, you act white, you are white essentially. And I think there's that assumption that, you know, that the privileges, the full set of privileges come along with it. And I think that's ignoring a lot of Asian American history.
Yeah, I think the people that say that, they don't realize that it kind of perpetuates this idea of like being American is being white. You know, like it goes into that whole discussion of like, oh my god, you sound so white, and it's like, no, I don't sound white, I just speak English. That's like, English does not equal white. Like there are people in Europe that don't speak English that are white. So do you approach race conversations with other like people of color with more caution?
It depends on my relationship to the person. Like say I'm a lot more comfortable having like race conversations with a black friend than I am having the race conversation like with my mom, like with my dad, because, you know, especially my little brother doing like, you know, applying for college now, doing college tours. Like at one point he was like, oh, I want to go to Baltimore to see a school, and my mom straight up was like, nope, we're not going there. There's too many black people. And it's instantly shut down, and it's hard now, especially as a college student, because I don't see my parents as much. So it's just like, oh, do I really want to like ruin this little time I have with my parents by like
I feel that so hard.
Bring this stuff up and kind of like rocking the boat.
I've told my mom like, don't use Oriental anymore, and she still uses it sometimes, just because like it's kind of like a quick like it's like a quick reference to East Asian people, you know. That's interesting that you mentioned like your family versus your friends, though, because for me, like I still feel very anxious when I talk about race with my black friends, because like I feel like even though like there is some blood that has gone on between like white people and Asian people, like there's obviously been like more blood between black people and white people, and so like I always am scared to like dominate or like talk as if I know. Because like I feel like the race relations between Asians and white people is like just so much less violent than black and white people. So like I still feel nervous. I don't know if you would feel that. I think
it has been less violent like historically, but that doesn't mean it hasn't been violent.
Yes.
I think that it's like important for us to look back on histories, to recognize that even though we are like oppressed, I guess, to different degrees, that we are like all kind of living under white supremacy.
Yes.
And it's important to recognize that as like
a common
denominator, so to speak. Like I recently learned about like the Chinese, not the Chinese Exclusion Act,
the Chinese massacre.
Yeah, the Chinese massacre of 1871. Like literally, like hundreds of people like just rioted on the streets and like were specifically looking to kill, lynch, and hang Chinese people. And like, I was so jarring to me, because I feel like as East Asians we I personally don't think that much about it.
I think another reason why I feel uncomfortable sometimes when I talk to like Latinos or Black people about race, I think it also like I actually recently had a discussion with a lot of people of color at work, and they were pointing out that like it's basically like the white people looked at us and the Latino people and they're like, oh well, you're not as dark as like the Black people, and so you're a little like we'll place you like a little bit higher than them. I don't know if that's what you read, but that's what I was told in my discussions.
Yeah, there's a very specific history behind that. It was like during the Cold War, where there's like the arms race, right? And then America was like, oh, we need to attract the best talent in the world. And that's when they kind of started to peel back the Chinese Exclusion Act and say, hey, if you're an Asian immigrant, you can come over if you have professional talents. And that's kind of like how the model minority myth came to be.
That's kind of how like the stereotype of us like being successful came from, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot easier for East Asian people to be not woke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would definitely say so.
Because like privilege intrinsically keeps you asleep sometimes, right? Like it kind of sends you this message of like, oh, like all of these struggles that these darker skinned people are going through, it's not your problem.
Yeah.
So you don't have to really worry about it. Just keep behaving well and like you'll still have your privilege, you know?
A lot of, say, Black history plays into Asian history as well. Like for the Immigration Act that, you know, brought my parents over, it was during the civil rights movement. And a lot of Black leaders during the time said, hey, you can't exclude a whole race of people, you know, like the Chinese people, purely based on race. Like that's not okay. And they fought against the Chinese Exclusion Act. So I think, you know, that's just another example of like, hey, if we know some history, like it's not always that, you know, Asian people and Black people were divided. There's actually a lot of solidarity. And if you look a bit deeper, there is a lot of solidarity going on today between different communities. Like say for the Kai Gurley case.
Yes. For me, like the whole Chris Rock thing, like it's like the whole like child labor joke aside, like I was just like wondering a lot about how a lot of people were criticizing him for also like not fighting for other people of color and only like talking about Black people, because like on one hand I'm like, I mean, like it's like nobody's job to fight for everybody. Like like Black people have struggles to have like enough struggles already. Like I don't need him to fight for me, but at the same time it's like it would be nice to like have more people like promote, as you said, like a form of like solidarity of like, it's not just Black people, it's like all races under the spectrum. I'm wondering if you got any of those feelings like when you listen to Chris Rock.
We can't only be there for, you know, Black justice, Black empowerment when it suits our communities as well. And at the same time, like when we are there for their communities, I don't think that it should be a kind of like, oh, we were here for you this time.
Definitely not.
Y'all need to be for us.
Definitely not.
I don't think that's how solidarity should be working.
No, definitely not.
It should be, you know, in the spirit of, you know, actual solidarity, building community together, and like building community shouldn't be like, you know, like a cold cut kind of exchange. There's resources out there, especially in the age of the internet. Like we're so privileged to have this information and have all these like different perspectives, you know, accessible to us, and we can take our own time to go out there, read a lot of things, consume a lot of information and knowledge, and kind of build our own critical thinking and perspectives. And
hopefully just like hope that other people will see that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Zootopia, right? It's like,
yes,
it's like it's like that whole message of like just starting off with yourself and like being the change that you want to see, right? Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. And how she like listened to his story, and you know wasn't like, you know, when like the kids muzzled him, and you know wasn't like, oh, like what did you do to make them muzzle you? Like you must have done something wrong. You know, like even despite her own biases against like, you know, predators and foxes, that, you know, she just listened and was empathetic, and that's like a really important lesson. I think specifically as, you know, a pretty privileged like Chinese American, that I am less directly affected by that, so I have more, you know, energy to expend for these conversations. I think that's like a powerful way that you can wield your privilege.
So
because you're not directly affected by it, you can have these conversations and kind of help to facilitate.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I love that. When you start looking at like pieces about race and gender and like just social justice in general, like I think it's so important to like look at pieces that are not made for you. Yeah. It's important to look at like, you know, like things that Black people are tired of hearing, things that Latino people are tired of hearing. Because like it gives you such a more eclectic view of like white oppression. It allows you to like learn to always keep in mind that there are different facets and like there are different ways that we're struggling, and there are, and also the similarities in which we can come together, because like I think it's so easy to be caught up in your own struggle, but my whole thing is like if we only focus on our own groups, then like even as big as the Asian community is, it can be it's hard if it's just like one specific group, because like it's still us against like the white institution. What like white racism fears most is like us coming together.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a good note to end it on.
Cool. Thank you, Chris, for having me.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I'm gonna link to Leo's channel. We did a collab. I sang. Again, yeah, I'm sorry. We will leave some resources of like some great educational art websites, and thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate you, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Cool.